Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Matthias Krug. I'm the author of this book about Qatar's football history. I was born in Qatar and raised here, since my father came here in 1982 as one of the first athletics coaches in the country. And in this book, I recount the football history of Qatar, which is, of course, so relevant at the moment with Qatar hosting the world's football fans from across the world for the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022. Such an exciting time, and it's also a great time to read more about the football history and the journey that brought Qatar to the point where they're now creating more history as the first Arab host of the FIFA World Cup. In the book, I relate the story from the earliest days of football in Qatar, when the game was played sometimes on sand, sometimes oil was used to draw the lines of the pitch in the sand. And these were the 1940s, so 75 years ago. And then I tell the story of how football in the country progressed, how the passion for football grew across the country. And Qatar became the first country in the region to have a stadium with a grass pitch. So Doha Stadium was built in the 1960s. It was used to further develop football in the country, so this was where all the big games were held. And by 1973, it was hosting Pelé, the FIFA World Cup winner, and his Santos side played against Al Ahly club, which is Qatar's oldest football club. In the same stadium, the famous Muhammad Ali was also he fought a boxing fight there in the 1970s. And I continue to relate throughout this book the different decades and how sport and football progressed in Qatar, and some of the anecdotes, some of the stories of those journeys across the different decades. So by the 1980s, a coach called Evaristo de Macedo had come to Qatar, and he became very famous in the country because he took the Qatar youth team to the 1981 FIFA Under-20 World Championships, and they were able to beat Brazil 3-2 in the quarterfinals. They defeated England 2-1 in the semifinals, and so they reached the final of the tournament and lost to West Germany. It was a magnificent achievement for the country, and it really helped to propel the country's sporting and football development even further. So as I recount, the country then developed further as a host nation as well, hosting major competitions such as the Asian Cup at the end of the 80s. And by 1992, Qatar had reached the quarterfinals of the Olympic Games in Barcelona. And that later that same year, Qatar won the first Golf Cup here in Doha. So that was a major triumph. So the book really tells these stories in a lot of detail. It also includes some of the images of the first game, some of the major successes of Qatari football, as you can see. And it goes on to relate as well how Qatar bid for the FIFA World Cup and successfully became the first Arab nation to host the tournament. In 2010, that decision, and then the following years of transformation in the country. It speaks about the Qatari team, which was surprised the continent and the world to win the Asian Cup in 2019 under coach Felix Sanchez, and with the great young players developed by the Aspire Academy, by the Qatar Football Association, which you see now taking part in the FIFA World Cup. So if you have a moment to spare between watching games, make sure to read about Qatar's fascinating football history, and I'm sure it will surprise you. I'm sure you'll learn a lot about the journey to get to where we are today. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the football.